What achievements did you make that made you happy? Like, did you?
What achievements? When do you mean?
Like in the Navy.
In the Navy?
Yeah.
I think if you talk to anybody that remembers me, and I've got one individual that lives in South Dakota that was in our boat group, and he would say that I remember Ensign Jerde as being a nice fellow. I think I got along real good with my men, and I would like this McElroy, this Negro that was assigned to our room. I wish he would come to one of our reunions, because I had never been exposed to Negroes, of course, coming from the north. My roommate, who was from Arkansas, he was remembered his childhood and living in that. But anyhow, I would like to meet McElroy, and he could be a very successful person, or he could have, whatever he did after he got out of service, and see if he would be willing to say, yeah, I kind of remember you. You never made me shine your shoes. You never were demanding of me when I was a waiter down in the. You were always courteous and such. And then I think I did my job aboard ship as a junior officer, so that the captain, when we cut down after the war to a smaller crew, and I stayed. I like to think that, well, Captain Cohen had a choice of transferring me off, and then I would go to some other ship, or that as he picked the officers that stayed, that I was one that stayed with him, and so I think I did a satisfactory job. I never fouled up badly in my duties aboard ship, and then so at that point, then we started standing officer of the deck. And I could, where I was in charge of the ship. I'll tell you one incident. We were coming from the Philippines to San Francisco, and it was terrible stormy, and the waves, and our ship, and we're going on a course, and I tell the helmsman, I said, can you keep it a little closer to on course? I said, the captain, look out his window and see that we're going all over the ocean, and of course the waves were running faster than we were. They picked the stern of the ship up, and the stern would fall off this way, and then they'd go out under the bow, and the bow would fall down the 30, 40 feet. I think we were running in about 35-foot waves, and anyhow, I'm telling him, okay, could you hold it a little closer to course? And I remember this incident because the young sailor said, let me see you do it, sir. And I took his challenge, So my relationship, this I'm giving as an example of my relationship. And so you stand up on the rack, and you grab this big wheel like a ship is supposed to have, which you don't have anymore. And so then I thought, well, I can anticipate which way it's going to fall, and I'll turn the rudder this way, and I'll turn it this way, and I'll hold it closer to course. And of course, when I got through, I couldn't do any better than he did, and so I turned it back to him. But he felt a relationship with me, so he felt free to say, "Let me see you do it, sir." And I took the challenge. So I felt that I had the ability to get along with the men in my division, and that none of them would say that Des Jerde was really a son of a gun, that such as that. But it was a responsible job. I don't remember following up. I didn't cause any put anybody in danger where anything bad resulted from it, and I got my job done, and that's what I was supposed to do. I could earn my money.
Did you think that your experience in the Navy helped you through the rest of your life, or benefited you?
I think when I came out of the Navy, in 1946. And I had gone on an LSM. I was unhappy about that I got reassigned, but I was the executive officer, first lieutenant. I was the navigator, just on that little ship. And then I got off and I came home, and I think I felt I was in a position I could lick the world at that time. I really, when I think back of it at that time, and of course, Celia and I got married in 1947, and I was working for Thorpe Auto Company. I was real confident of my ability to do things. I was a member of First Lutheran Church. We built a brand new church in 1950-51. I was chairman of the building committee. I was in 1950, then in 42 I was, 20 years old, and 8 more years. I was about 30 years old, and they elected me to be chairman of the building committee. We did our own contracting. So I was writing letters, I was negotiating, I was buying. I don't think I would dare try to do that now. And then I went on the school board in 1951. I had someone come to me and asked me to run for school board, because I had no kids at school or anything, so that wasn't it. But they were looking for a member of a 5-man board, and so I went on the school board at that point and stayed for 17 years. And when we did all that building, and we tore down our old school building that I'd gone to school with, and did all this construction, built a new high school building, I was president of the board when all that work was completed. See, so I think that my Navy career really contributed to feeling that I could handle this situation or handle that situation. I would have a lot more misgivings about my ability right now when I get to be an old man than I did at that time. But I credit my experiences in the Navy. And also then I think my experiences in the Navy, I say, hey, I can live in a small town. I've been to Seattle, I've been to San Francisco, I've been to Manila, I've been to Japan, I've been to Nagasaki, I've been to Hawaii 3 times, and so don't tell me I just live in this little isolated area here. And when Celia and I were married, and she would give me credit for this, where did we go on our honeymoon? We took off, we went to the East Coast, we went to Niagara, we went to New York City, we went to Manhattan, we went to the Ziegfeld Theater on Manhattan, and went to Washington, D.C. And I would have never done that if I hadn't had the Navy experience in that. I felt confident I could go any place I wanted. I really, as a young man, at 25 at that time, go. So I think my Navy experiences have nothing but favorable in the schooling and getting a chance to go to Chicago and go to schooling down there. Just all was a plus for me.
Okay. What is your schedule like now?
What is my schedule now?
Yeah.
I'm retired,
So,
and I'm 73 years old, and I've found a pattern that currently is fitting me very well, and I did it today. I got up, I woke up early. I get up every morning. I tend to wake up about 5 o'clock in the morning. I listen to the 5 o'clock news on public radio, and sometimes I get back to sleep otherwise, and then I get up about 7 o'clock, and I quietly go about. My apartment is upstairs in the house now, and I get dressed and I leave the house about 7:30 in the morning, and I go downtown for breakfast. And there's about the same people, very few, that come to breakfast, and it basically takes me about an hour to have breakfast and do my visiting, an hour and a quarter sometimes. And then the John Deere dealership here in town, which we used to have when I worked for Thorpe Auto, and we sold the John Deere dealership, and so I worked. When I left Thorpe Auto and they closed, and I went out and worked for the John Deere dealer. My son Ed took my job away from me when I told Mike I couldn't work a full schedule. I didn't want to work a full schedule anymore. And so I go out every day, and I was out there this morning, and I work about an hour, maybe more, if I get there early enough, because I've got to be in for coffee at 10 o'clock. And so we have coffee every morning at 10 o'clock, and we roll dice to see who pays, and we roll dice to see who wins the quarters, and we're basically done with coffee at about 10:30. If there happens to be somebody there that happened to be visiting, and I might sit and visit till another quarter of an hour or half an hour, and then I come home and I read the Minneapolis Tribune, which I take, and then it's dinner time, and then I might go lay down and rest a little bit because I have to be back to coffee at 3 o'clock to 3:30. And then I come home, and of course the last couple of years have been a little tough for me because of 3 surgeries and radiation and such, and otherwise my yard work or work around the house, I found taking care of this old house, I got a lot of things some painting to do and this and that, and I just physically have not been able to do it, and so I hired somebody to do it this year, and they didn't get to it, and I'm a little frustrated in my inability to keep up with just normal maintenance. But the yard work I still do, and I'm so bloomin' busy, Erika, that and it takes me so long to do things that I'm getting way behind. See, time goes so fast for me, and I enjoy it so much. And Celia's and our pattern. Celia's very busy. She plays cards 3 times some weeks, 2 times the Pinnacle and Bridge, 2 different clubs. Whenever she has a card day, then I've got to do the dishes and clean the kitchen after the lunch, and the pattern that we've set, and I'm looking forward to this 2-week cruise we're going on in December, which will be our 5th cruise. I like those special vacations we've gone on. Rather than I have no regret to not being able to go to Phoenix for the winter. I don't want to leave Britain. There's too many things happening, but to get away on a 2-week cruise, I'm very enthused about that. And the one we did 2 years ago, and the one we did 2 years before that, and such. So my life is very pleasant. I'm involved in discussions. I don't want to be involved in controversy anymore. I've had that. My years on the school board, I worked for the city council under 5 different mayors, and I did that all as a young man. And so now, if it's political problems, I want to say, hey, isn't it wonderful I'm so old that I don't have to worry about that anymore.
What time of day do you like best? Like afternoon, morning?
I don't think I have a preferable time. I find I'm not a night person anymore. Of course, my problems the last couple of years have taken me. I haven't been to a basketball game for 2 years now, where I never would miss a game, and now I think I'm going to have a hard time getting myself back to going to games, because I kind of like to go to bed early and get up early, and so I'm not particularly interested in getting on a schedule where we go out on a party or something at night. I like my peaceful nights at home, and I maybe enjoy going out a little bit, but we used to go out to more card parties than we're doing now, and so I like my private time, but maybe afternoons are the best time, because you can take a nap and then you can coffee, and then you can do some yard work or something like that.
What season is your favorite? Do you like winter better or summer?
I think actually I look forward to the fall and winter more, because you control your activities more, because you're restricted to what you can do, and I like the restriction. Where in summertime the weather is such that you can go and you can do this and do that, and so I enjoy, as we come into this season now, that it shuts it down and controls your ability to do things more.
What do you enjoy most about nature?
About what?
Nature?
Nature. Well, that's I'm not what do you say, a naturalist or something. I think the year that Celia and I drove to Fargo every Monday morning and came back every Friday for 7 weeks, and that was the year of such heavy snow in this area. And I think the drive from here over the hills to Sisseton and then up the interstate, but from here to Sisseton was just beautiful that year. The snow was so white and perfect, and it stayed on the trees. We didn't have wind, and our lakes have filled up, and all winter long, if I'm leaving Britain in the morning and it's, if it was 15 below zero, when I got up in the lake country, all the streams were still running, that blue water, and just the beauty, and I guess maybe along with nature is my comments, that one of the beauties of our area, and I've told people this as I've gone on trips, the nothingness that we have, the lack of people that we have, and the open spaces that we have. That's a real plus of this area, and so whether you see the beauty of the trees during the summertime or the beauty of the winter, it's just wonderful.
What kinds of foods do you like or not like?
Well, I have had a reputation of liking everything, and to say I just have a food that is, man, I just wait till I can get a lobster dinner or have pheasant or this or that. I'm very easy to please. I said on one of the trips we went on, and dining aboard ship is a real interesting experience. Maybe the reason I like it best is because there's no prices on my choice, so I don't have to evaluate it from, if I want lobster, I can have lobster because it don't cost me any more than other things on the menu, because there are no prices there, and I'm too cheap to spend a lot of money to eat. But I did say to the waiter one day, how come on your menu you never have hash? And so, see, living here, when Celia makes hash, I like hash. I like one thing I found, my capacity, and I've gotten common sense now, is the amount of food I eat, whereas before we didn't really need a garbage disposal, because I would, as we ate with a big family, well, I was always finishing up something, or emptying the potato bowl, or emptying this, and could do that maybe, or shouldn't have done it maybe when I was a young man. But so to say that I like a good steak best, or I like something exotic, lobster or pheasant or something, there are many things that I like. There might be a thing or two. I don't know that I'm an enthusiastic eater of liver, but there was a time when my dad lived with us, your mother's grandpa, and he had low blood count, and he really should have taken some pills. He didn't take medicine, so we had liver every week, once a week. And I really liked it pretty good. And my dad, it was a treat to have, and it was good for him, so that, but I don't know that I've gone into a cafe and ordered a good liver dinner.
What modern conveniences do you appreciate most?
Well, going back over, if I back down to the early years of married life, when we started living in this house, and Celia moved in, and there was still a cook stove here, coal-fired, and she cooked on that for a year because we could not hook on extra electric appliances, so we didn't have an electric stove probably for a year. But with, as you well know, the children that we had, 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5, probably as the industry came with automatic washers and came with dryers, that probably has been and you know our setup here, we got a very convenient now, and Maytag came with an automatic washer dryer combination where you throw the clothes in, they wash, and then they automatically switch and they dry and all at once, which was a total fiasco. But I bought one of them, and we sold them down at our business. And so to attempt to make the laundry more convenient was probably the number one factor, and probably when the last kid got it, that was a highlight of my life, you know, when that happened. But I think, and if you look at our setup and where the hamper is and where our washer dryer, right, when we remodeled the kitchen in that back hall area, to have that as convenience, then you don't have to go downstairs to the laundry room. It's a prominent part of the kitchen laundry area, and I would also say, you know, the new stove we bought, probably making the kitchen laundry area convenient is probably an important expenditures we made.
What are your hobbies?
Hobbies, I think that I should learn how to do something so that I can say, well, my hobby is woodworking, or my hobby is this, and so it's difficult for me to say what my hobby might be. I've done more reading than I ever thought I would. I've read my Reader Digest condensed books that at one time I wouldn't think. But my yard work and maintenance, you know, yard work is probably a hobby. I don't do woodworking. Do some things, but I think my yard work is my hobby.
What? Okay, you went on how many cruises did you go on now?
Well, this is going to be our fifth cruise.
So where have these cruises taken you?
Well, I've got to say this, that the last trip I made in the Navy, on the APA that I was on 19, we went out to Hawaii to pick up some troops to bring to the United States who were actually going to Germany, a lot of them going to Germany for occupation duty in 1946. Coming back, one of the Matson liners, the Lurleen, passed us up one night, and that of course had been used as a troop ship during the war, been converted back to civilian, and it passed us, all the lights on, and we're going our 16 knots, and it's probably going 20, and passed us up in just a few hours. And I thought, you know, once I get out of the Navy, when I get married, wouldn't it be fun to go on a luxury liner and take my wife with me and go to Hawaii? Well, of course, those liners, once the airplane came in, those trips to Hawaii weren't available anymore. And so when I later saw that you could go to Hawaii and then take a cruise of the islands, go aboard ship in Hawaii, we went. And so that was the first one. And then also Celia had never been aboard a ship, so we went out to Hawaii and boarded after a couple of days on Oahu, then we boarded the Constitution, which used to be a liner that did the Atlantic bit down into the Mediterranean. It has the Princess Grace and Prince Rainier. They had their honeymoon on the Constitution and such. But anyhow, we took that cruise, which took us down to the island of Hawaii, to Maui, and up to Kauai, and back to Oahu for 1 week, and had a very enjoyable time. And Celia really enjoyed it. So then we took the Royal Princess on the Puerto Rico, San Juan, through the canal up to Acapulco, and then we stayed in Acapulco a few days, 3 days, I think, 2 days. And that was our second cruise, and that was really luxurious and wonderful. And so then it came up that we could go from New York down to Nassau and make 5 stops along the East Coast. I had never sailed on the East Coast in my Navy career, so I thought that would be fun to go into the ports on the East Coast, and we ended up down in Charleston and Savannah, the last 2 stops. And so we took that cruise and then got off down at Nassau, and so that's 3. And then we went to England and boarded the Royal Princess at Savannah or Southampton, and went over to Oslo, Norway, then the North Cape cruise, and all the way up to the North Cape. Absolutely fabulous cruise, and just wonderful. That was really terrific. And so now we're going back on the San Juan to Panama, up to Acapulco on a 11-day on the Royal Princess again. So this will be our 4th cruise on the Royal Princess, which indicates I'm not anxious to go try a new ship or anything. I think that Royal Princess is such a nice ship, Steve. So this will be our fifth cruise. And also, we're about running out of money, so.
What do you enjoy doing most with your family and friends?
Family and friends, and you know, age dictates what you can do, and you know, when we were younger, and we went on some camping trips with the Stilsons, and we took 2 of our kids, and they had 2 kids, and so that was a period of time when we were in our 50s maybe, and we had adult children, and Ed was still young enough, and we went on the camping trips, which were economical trips to go, and that was a lot of fun at that time. Then a period of time when it was real fun to go out and have about 4 tables of pinochle and go for a pinochle party and such, and have them up to the house and such. And now that has, due to circumstances, that's cut down to go over to Stilson's and visit for an evening and play cards, and or to have four tables of cards in the house, and that's enjoyable. I have enjoyed in the past of going down to Minneapolis to go to Chanhassen to a dinner theater and such, and but those things are kind of pricing themselves out of my price range. Plus, it's easier for me at this age not to try to figure out things to do, just to stay home and then go on something like we're going to do for 2 weeks. But at the younger age, to go down to Minneapolis, and we did take our kids down to Sound of Music, to Fiddler on the Roof, and certainly your mother participated in some of those activities. And we used to go down to Fred Waring's concert. We went down to the Ice Follies, took all the kids to the Ice Follies that one year down on Lake Street, where we ended up in a blizzard and ended up in Morris, and then had to take the train from Morris into the cities and ride taxi cabs. I'm sure your mother would remember that, and stay at a hotel. The old Andrews was then, and you know, just a terrific experience. And we used to be able to do that. I don't know how our families now make more money, and so they can do maybe what I could do then, and now that I'm living on Social Security. See, I can't afford. You go down to a play in Minneapolis now, and they want $30 to $50 a ticket, or Chanhassen is up to the prices they are, and so I've got to be a little bit more careful. Plus, it's easier for me to be careful because I don't want to drive to Minneapolis and get down in the traffic anymore and do things that, as a younger person, it was really fun to, you know, do things like that.
Okay. Is there any experience that was humorous or odd that happened to you recently that you can recall?
That was humorous and odd recently, you know, just right offhand, I can't think of something that I could say that was that fits that category.
What type of cars did you drive?
Well, when I came back from the service and the war was just over, it was hard to get a car. And of course, Dad and I were batching it. And I went to work for the Chevrolet dealer, Buick Chevrolet dealer, John Deere dealer in town here, and So we traded in. Dad had a 39 Chevrolet going into the war. That car, of course, impossible to buy a car, and so that was what he was driving when I came back. So we traded our 39 Chevrolet in on a new 1947 Chevrolet, and I owned half, he owned half. And then a year later, we had put 20,000 miles on that car in 1 year because Celia was down in Minneapolis. I don't know how many trips I might have made to Minneapolis, and we were engaged. And then Dad was running the elevator and do his driving, and so I got to tell you this because this will blow your mind. But in 1948, the 48 Chevrolets came out, and I'm working at Thorpe's, and so I told the boss that I wanted to trade my 47 in on a 48 Chevrolet, and there's price controls on. And these figures are not totally accurate, but so the 1948 Chevrolet had a sticker price on it, and it was a style line four-door sedan, middle bracket, not the fleet line, but not the cheapest one. And that car probably sold for $1,550, sticker price, OPA control. And I'm going to trade in my 47 on the 48. And so I told the boss, now, you want to make $500 on my car, and you can sell my car, which is old, 1 year with a 20,000 miles. You can sell that for $1,900. Now, a new one only costs $1,550, but my old one would bring $1,900. But the used cars were not price controlled. And so, if you give me $1,400 for it, then I'll write you a check for $150, and I'll have a new car, $150 to boot. And then you can sell mine for $1,900, and you make your $500 plus you've made the full price on the new one. And so I traded cars for $150. He didn't sell my used car for $1,900. He sold it for $2,000 to a used car dealer, who then sold it to a customer for $2,200 and made $200. And so Dad and I, it cost me $75, cost Dad $75, and we had a new, brand new car. 48 Chevrolet. In 1950, we bought a car that one of the bosses had driven a little bit, and had a two-door coupe. And Dad owned half, I owned half. And then he was retiring, and so he said, I think I can afford to own my own car. And I said, okay, I'll buy or sell. I have so much money, and I set the price low because I knew he wanted a new car. So I bought out his half interest on the 50 Chevrolet. And so we drove that, and then 1950, let me think. See, your mother was born in 1950, right? And then somebody else was born in David was born in 51, and Dwayne was born in 52. Anyhow,
okay. Action.
okay, we were talking about cars, and now just to speed up a little bit, and so 1950, and we drove that, and I was stressing the fact that we were getting more kids all the time. In 1958, Celia's father passed away, and where the boys inherited the farm, and Celia got $2,000 in inheritance. And so we took the $2,000 and we bought ourselves a 1958 station wagon and moved to the station wagon. That was really wonderful because Ed was born in 55, so we had five children. And I drove that then and I don't know just how many years, but for 3, 4, 5 years or something. And then I had acquired a minority interest in the business, stressing the minority, but among other things, then they started furnishing me a new car. So we took a new station wagon, and that had to be then in the early '60s. And for many years, then I drove 9-passenger station wagons because Grandpa went with us. So when we went places, there were 8 of us, and so I would take I never owned a car after 1958. So I owned half of a 1947, half of a 1948, and then I acquired the full 50, and then I bought that 58. That was the last car I bought, and then the company furnished me a car. So if the car I was driving, they found a sale for it and they sold it, then I just took another new one. So some years we would have 2 new cars, but and some years we would drive the same car all year. So for a number of years there, I never got more than, well, first it was 10,000 miles on a car, 12,000 or something like that in a year, and then I'd take a new one. So I stayed with the station wagons for a long time, and then when the kids were gone, then I switched back and would take a car. And one year I drove a turbocharged Buick Coupe for a while, and so then when I got out of the business and the business was closing down, that would be in 1982. Then I had to buy a car again. So that really saved me a lot of money, and they paid the insurance, they paid the maintenance. All I had to do was put the gas in it, and all of a sudden then I find that cars get older and get more mileage on them, and cost a lot of money, see. But so I had the 82 and drove that, and then we bought the 1990 Oldsmobile. So we have the 90 Oldsmobile and the 82 Buick. And I don't think I'll ever be able to afford another one when I see the price of them now.
Okay. What films did you see that stand out? Any special films or?
Films?
Yeah, movies.
Movies. Oh, I should pick one out that I really liked, and you've thrown that question at me, and right at the moment I can't really. So I go back, and I think Sound of Music is one of my favorite, and was a favorite stage play, and I liked that. So I think I'd pick Sound of Music. I can still. We have someone gave us the film Sound of Music. I can sit down and watch that. I like the music, I like the story, and I like the stage play. That's another thing that my Navy experience. When I got to San Francisco, I went to theater for the first time, and I saw Oklahoma in San Francisco, and just enthralled going to a theater and watching the songs and the dance of theater. And that's why I think after we got married, and Celia and I on our trip went to Brigadoon in New York, and that was, his favorite. So I still enjoy the live productions like that. And so Sound of Music in the movie version is an excellent movie.
Did you have a favorite radio or TV program when you were a kid?
I watch, and you yesterday watching TV. I do not watch a lot of TV. And Ed talks about programs, and there's no specific TV program that I watch. I'm a, what do you call it, a surfer?
Yep, a channel surfer.
And if I see something I like, but rather documentaries, see, I watch those, or Channel 19, Flight, where they have stories of airplanes and things like that. And but I've gone by the point where there were TV programs where I used to, All in the Family or whatever it was. Now there are no TV programs that I really look forward to watching. I watch the news now. I listen to news on the radio. On the radio, if I wake up and I turn my radio on between midnight and 5 o'clock in the morning, I can get symphony orchestra music. I'm amazed at, and I don't know that much about it, but the Berlin Philharmonic or Symphony Orchestra, and the London one, or United States ones, and some of the music they play, and try to identify instruments, and they talk about who wrote music, and I sure am not a highbrow music person, but I think if I had the opportunity, learning more about classical music, I would be interested in that, and I enjoy that type of music, and it's just pleasing music is all.
Okay, what is your advice for getting along with people?
Probably just to try to be tactful, to determine what displeases people, and then to steer clear of that. For instance, we have a new superintendent in school, and he has coffee with us. And I think this is an example of what I'm trying to say. So he's talking about things up to school. Let's enter into the discussion. And then I was saying, and Superintendent Cermak was our superintendent when I came on the board, and Superintendent Cermak retired during the 17 years I was on the board, and the last 5 years I was on the board was because he was coming under some pressure, and I thought he deserved to finish out his career as superintendent of Britain School, and I ran for the board, and I got on and accomplished that. Well, anyhow, when Don talks about some things, and then I say, well, when Cermak was running the school, we did it this way, see, and when Cermak was running the school, we ran our high school with only 8 teachers, and if we needed a substitute, Cermak taught the class, and I, jokingly did this of the tight ship that we used to run, and basically it went over very well, and he would come back, yeah, when Cermak was superintendent, he probably shoveled the coal, and he did this. And one day somebody told me, he said, I don't think Don really appreciates your reference always when the inference that when Cermak ran the school, things ran right. And right then, I have never said that since. In other words, recognizing that, hey, that could be an irritant to him, instead of the lighthearted way that I do that. So recognizing what you can say around people and not really bringing controversy. I don't object to going head to head with somebody if we're discussing something, but just try to be tactful with people, and if they're going to be kind of a little obnoxious, just let them be and don't get too excited about it.
What do you think of the schools today? Do you think they're better than the ones before, or are they the same or worse?
It would be easy to say that I don't think they're good, but the truth of the matter is that I think the schools are better. Kids are better educated than they used to be, so schools got to be better. I think there are a lot of problems. There are problems with the schools today, and I guess I could not serve on the school board now, and even a few years ago at my age, and the things they have to cope with now that we didn't have to cope with when I was on there. We controlled the school more so when I was on the board. We could do things. We could control our hiring practices. We could fire people if we wanted to. We could budget the way we wanted to, and the federal government and state governments weren't so involved. Now, so many things are dictated to them that it would be real difficult for me to serve now.
Who do you think is the greatest person of this century?
Oh, probably Cecilia, who has been able to put up with me for a lifetime. To think of some outstanding political person, educator. What would be hard to say. Automatically I start thinking back into the time of World War II. You know, that's 50 years ago now, and thinking out of that time, there were some really outstanding people, and I don't know, maybe General Marshall and the Marshall Plan and the getting the world back on its feet and stuff. Maybe he was a great person. Eisenhower was just I shouldn't say an opportunist, but he fell into things to say that he was great. But each decade comes with some important person. So, but I think it must have been quite a thing for someone in Marshall's position to do the things and promote the Marshall Plan. I'm a lifetime Republican, and for all the turmoil, I really respect Harry Truman for making the decision to drop the atomic bomb on Japan when he did. And it's been tough for me when these people now are questioning that it didn't need to be dropped. They should have been out there at that time, and what the potential was coming, and so when that bomb dropped, and we had left Okinawa for our second time, and we're heading towards Ulithi, and I don't know how could have been happier at what we were reading on the secret messages that this thing had happened, and the war was going to end, and our next job wasn't going to be to invade Japan. See, and so I really respect Truman for the way he came on, decisive president that he was at that time. And so maybe at the moment, because some are criticizing that I would say he was a great man for what he had to do, and when he fell into the presidency at that time.
Okay. What was the Depression like here?
What was the Depression like?
Yeah.
For me, and so you're talking of in the 30s, and in 1932 I was 10 years old, and probably it started in the 30s, so I was 8 years old. To me, the Depression years were no problem. I have some inkling of my mother's concern that Dad's job in the elevator, every year the board had a meeting and decide whether to rehire him, and what if he would lose his job, and the farm that Mother had a third interest in down 1/4 down in Brookings County never supported itself, so Dad had to put in money to keep that intact at that time until they got it sold. But from a kid, I had clothes, I had shoes, we had food, and we went, as I say, down to Toronto. We had a car, and we had a satisfactory house. The dust was terrible, the dust blowing, and Mother putting the newspapers along the windows that we had, and particularly in the dining room, and wetting the paper to stop the dust from coming into the house, and things like that. But from a kid's standpoint, and going through school and getting the job and working, the Depression really didn't impact me, and being aware of people who were having a tougher time, but I don't know, everybody kind of survived, and people helped out people. The grocer ran charge accounts and got stuck with bills, and the clothing man put out some clothes that he didn't get paid for, and such. So aware that times were tough, but in our particular situation, as I say, Dad got a check every month, and he ran an elevator, and he made money every year for the farmers co-op because of the way he handled the business, and he worked hard and he worked long days, but it wasn't that bad for a kid.
Of all the inventions and discoveries of the 20th century, which one would you say is the most significant?
I gotta relate it to the advancement in air travel. The car came along, but I guess I'm putting it into the transportation department. But so you're talking the 1900s. So I think the development of the airplane and eventually the jet plane and stuff. We had railroads, we had automobiles, and such. So, but air travel really changed things, in my opinion.
Okay. What is your philosophy of education?
Well, I think education is there's no question that it's important, and advanced education beyond high school is important, and a lot of people try to relate education to exactly what it's